Good morning. I'm working on our budget and I'm going to show you how I fill up our spreadsheet. I already have expenses. I believe at least most of the expenses in it, and probably I might have to adjust few numbers and see how our expenses compare to our income, and how much of our income we spend toward our debt payments or toward our living expenses. Let's get started. So I have my spreadsheet open here. Let's see. And I start filling up February as well. But as you can see, let's work on January. And I can hide my February. So we have our incomes here for January, and what I like to do for my in fact we'll do that for February if we have time. But so those are the costs, our actuals for different expenses, and our fees cost total to $1,918.25. And our mortgage, we pay extra here. That's the extra we pay to our principal. Let me click on it here. And then we have what we pay to our extra debt, extra critical debt here, when my husband paid the minimum there, and that's why he pay extra. So for this month of January, we spent quite a bit in our irregular expense category, and I have on that row, I call it expenses from saving, because they are expenses that I like to save for. And let's go down and see what that is about here. And as you can see, we try to save. We put our saving $664.53 when we actually budget $263.20 a month to save every month to pay for those irregular expenses. But this month we put $664.53 in the account. And as you can see, our garage door cost us $569.55. We paid $299 last year in fall, and now that the professionals came to finish up the job, we pay the rest. And we have car oil change and car repair that costs us that amount. Nothing in entertainment, and gifts to one of the kids for her birthday, and there is an expense here that I'm not seeing. Oh, that I think that'll go under February. No, that'll go here. And I believe it's $35. I have it on my paper budget. And that's $35, a membership to a car insurance company that my husband has. So, and that will be added there. So we have a copay of $50, and you can see what we budget and what we spent already. And the budget is for the year, and that's what we already spent. $100 for the year. We spent $50 on copay here, and we have medication $11.80. And what else? So you can see that we budget, and that's, let me expand this a little bit. That's budget for the year, which I use to divide it by 12 to find what I need to save every month for it. So we have $1,000 here for the home maintenance, and we already spent more than half already. And yeah, that's what I suspected. That amount is not all. There is a plumber, pretty much, and a plumber expense here that I need to add, $77.58. So that's that, and I think I got everything. So that's $800. If you go down, you will see that our irregular expenses cost us $880.22. So let's go back up to see that fit into our spreadsheet here. That's here, $880.22. And we have the total variable cost is $3,251.33. So our total cost is $5,169.58. We budget to put $500 in investment, but it's more like capital contribution to our businesses. But this month we spent it toward our irregular expenses. That's why we put that $664.53 in the saving account. So as you can see here, our expenses are more than what we earned this month of January. And the difference between those two is $215.59. And that is caused by the irregular expenses of that $880.22. So we have a balance here, and as you can see, the total of my balance is the amount to withdraw from the saving or to send to the saving. So if you have a positive number here, then that will go to our saving account. But if it's negative, that means that's the amount that we withdrew from our saving to cover that expense. And since our irregular expenses are something that usually are not paid for by our monthly income, but is paid for, or they are paid for by our saving, we like to save something for it. So, but we didn't want to deplete our saving account, so we use $500 of my income to cover a part of those expenses, and that $215.69 is what came from the saving to cover the remaining expenses that we incur from this month from the regular expense category. So how did you come up with that $664.53? I have this here, which is pretty much, let me click on it for you to see. It's just that we budget we have a budget here for our expenses. Some of our expenses that vary every month, and the difference between what we budget and what we spend, if it's a positive number, then it will go toward the saving account, and if it's a negative number, probably the saving account is going to pay for the excess, or our income will pay for the excess. I think our income, my husband's income, will pay for the excess, because his income is what pay for our expenses. But he pointed out recently that since any saving that we have under utilities, we put in the saving. If we spend more in utilities 1 month, the saving account should pay for it, and I agree with him on that. But we have not have that issue yet. I think we usually have that issue in February. I think February our utilities total, it between gas and electricity and water, it can be more than those two numbers that we budget. But the remaining of the month, we spend less than what we budget for, and we put the difference in the saving. And since we are trying to pay off his credit card debt with anything left out of his income, we stop contributing to our saving account for our irregular expenses, and we just use anything we can save from our expenses that we budget for to pull back in the saving account. And if that month we need to spend more, then we may not invest in our business, or we may not pay that much toward our mortgage extra, so that we can cover that irregular expense. And that's that scenario that we have this January. So that's how we budget and spend in January. So we are not going to get to February probably in this video, but let's take a look at our ratio. That's more what I wanted to talk about when I'm looking at our spreadsheet. And as you can see here, this one that is in red is pretty much our monthly living expense, including our irregular expense and the minimum debt. And minimum debt, that's the minimum mortgage and the minimum credit card. So what our living expenses are, so our living expense, that's pretty much this category here, and that's 1900 plus our irregular expenses of 880. So that's 2700. Let's see if that's what we have here. So it's taking what I would prefer to have, let me go back up here, is all our expenses here, unless I have that elsewhere already. That's what I want. So our monthly expenses, our irregular expenses, and our minimum debts total to 2,798.47 for the month of January. And that's 56.49% of our income. Let me see if this formula is in the same thing here. So pretty much this one is using no debts. Well, oh yeah, I have another one there. So I should not be using this formula for it. Let's change the, okay. So yeah, the one in red is pretty much our living expenses that comes out of my husband's income, our irregular expenses, and our minimum debts, mortgage and credit cards. So that's why the budget is 2083, and that's 42% of our income. But in January we spent 2798.47, and that's 56% of our income. So but then if you come up a little bit here, we have basic living expenses with irregular expenses included, but no debt, no mortgage, no credit card debt, and that's 919.23. The budget in January we spent 1633, and it's because of the irregular expense, the garage that we fix, the car that we fix, and the sinking, the kitchen sinking, the chicken sink that we unclogged. So those expenses increase it to 1600, and here we didn't have any irregular expense in that. So that one is just reflecting what our monthly basic living expenses are, $919. That's what we need. But if you had to fit something around the house, it could go up. And this month it was 1600, and that's 32.98% of our income. And if you come down here, let's go back down a little bit here. That's our monthly minimum debt payment. So it's $1,164, or 23.88% based on our budget. And in January we pay $1,164.55 to our minimum mortgage and minimum credit cards, and that's 23.51% of our income. So our debt, if we are paying the minimum mortgage, our debt is the minimum credit cards, our debt represents 23% of our income. And the next section is the monthly extra debt payments. So we budget to pay about $2,700 a month, and in January we pay $2,371.11, and that's 47.86% of our income. So the two main expenses here, the first one is the 56% of our income that we spent on our irregular expenses and our basic monthly expenses and minimum debt. That's that. And 47.86% we spent that on to pay extra to our debt. And that's that. So if we go, let me see what I wanted to say here. So yeah, as you can see here, our monthly expenses can vary because of the irregular expense, and I wanted to include it here. I could have separate those two to see how much really our basic expenses cost, but it's already in the budget here. And that's our basic expenses without, I didn't include the regular expenses, but it's not on the budget here. Without the debt, it's 919, which is 18% of our income. So 18% of our income cover is enough to cover our basic expenses without debt included. So if we see, let's see what our February, I don't know if I include all the expenses for February. I believe I didn't. So let me hide the things. I start working on our February already, and okay, I think enter some numbers here. So we have my husband got his incomes already. I estimated mine, so our total. And what I like to do at the right before the month start, I like to estimate our expenses, and then I'll go back and replace it with the actuals. So our total income estimated is, it will be a lot more close to the real amount because I put my husband's income already in it, and I'm a salaried, so mine won't change much. So 4,919.41 is what our income will be for February, and we have our expenses here estimated, and I kept my utilities 1cc 1cc. And I might even add bus ticket here, $10, and the reason is because my husband's expense income cover those expenses that allow me to have anything that we may not spend will go toward the saving account, and allow to have it here. And in fact, I don't even have to put that $10 because it's already in my formula. But the thing is, I have a formula here, and pretty much what it's trying to do is trying to tell me how much I'm saving if I don't spend what I budget for, if I spend less. So by having, if I spend less in utilities, then the residual will be at the bottom, and I know that that's the amount I need to move to my saving account. So but right now, between bus and groceries, I have $100 saving there, and it's showing it up here already, and that's that $100 there. That's what I know that I need to move. And my husband's, how much he needs to pay toward his credit card extra is using his income minus all the expenses and minus that 100 saving. So it's telling me that he has 489.95 that he could pay toward his credit cards. So I can put it here, down here, 489.43, 95, 489.95 will go to his credit cards. So as you can see, now that we have our estimated amount here, I'm estimating that my expenses will be $1,982.78 for February for fixed expenses, and $1,800 might go to our mortgage extra, and I will have $500 that might go to our businesses investment or capital contribution, and our variable expenses here, which is the total of mortgage extra and debt payment, is $2,335. But that might change because I think in February there are some expenses that I need to put in. The first one will fall under the house, and that's $37.45. I believe there might be a copay of $10, so $47.45 is irregular expenses that I'm aware of at this point for February. And if I go up, is here. So as you can see, my total variable expenses is $2,383.08, and my total cost is $4,366.86, and I'm having a balance of $52.55 here that most likely might go in the saving. But I'll have expected this number to be negative number though, 47.45, unless there is something here that I have not taken into consideration. But that's just that as we progress, we'll make adjustments once we start paying the bill. So I just want to show you our ratio for January, how much of our income we spent and how much of our income we pay toward our minimum debt, and how much of our income, the portion of our income that we pay extra toward our credit card debts and mortgage payment. Thank you for watching. I'm Afiavio Juna Marie-Ninette Liberman, creators of Marie-Ninette Liberman's YouTube channels and owners of Nina Soap, and my website is ninasoap.com.